the next album, you mentioned back in Bearsville, this time with a guy called Steve Osborne, who I don't know a lot about, but in looking at his discography, he worked a bunch with Aha, who's one of my favorite bands of all time. And he's got stuff like Dubs and Elbow and Peter Gabriel, YouTube, Placebo, uh,
Yeah, a
a
bunch
lot
of
of
cool British stuff. Yeah.
cool British uh, cred, but also commercial. I mean, just it's just an amazing lane that guy's
Mhm.
in. What was the decision making process in terms of figuring out who you wanted to make this record with, and
Yeah,
you landed on him?
we realized like as much as we love Brian, we had learned a lot from him, and like let's learn from someone else. Like just shake things up a bit. We knew it was going to be a pretty different record. Um, it actually I think was a bit scary, the demos for that, for a lot of would be producers, because they had heard artist and then we're like, I don't know what you all are trying to do, but uh this seems like a big turn and I don't know if I want to be behind it. And so we were trying to look outside the box of, I mean, we were meeting with a lot of different people, but um Steve's discography was interesting to us. It was just from a totally different world.
Yeah, not
um
punk, not hardcore, not
yep.
not.
And we talked to him on the phone. He just seemed like a sweet dude and he was excited about it. He's like, yeah, this is very different for me, but it sounds fun. And so I think just that attitude of like, I'm coming from somewhere else, I have a lot of experience, but let's make something together. It was enticing to us, and he was really great to work with. And just, I mean, even like the way he'd physically like move to music was like different than I don't know if that's easy to explain or understand, but like
No, I get
his
it.
head would move different to it, and we were like, "Huh, that's interesting." So he brought a lot of cool stuff, and then he also would. I mean, there are times where we'd be like, "I don't know, maybe we need like a not as heavy of a tone here." He's like, "No, no, turn it up, like make that part like heavy, like." So he wasn't trying to like calm it down or anything.
Yeah, no, if anything, you hire a producer like that because you want to get what they can do and what they can bring out of you that's a little bit different, but at the same time that person gets with you because they recognize something special about what you've been doing, right? So yeah, I would imagine a guy like that, he's probably more amped than the band was to be like, no, let's make this a heavy part.
yeah, it was cool. So he was great, and we were up at Bearsville for that whole record, down in the barn, which was not the same place that we did the drums on Artist. It was a bit smaller, very funky kind of space. I think it actually is an old barn that they built studio into. So like all the ISO cabs for the guitar stuff were like up in the rafters, kind of, and um, but it's very cool and just gorgeous there. So when I wasn't recording, I'd just go hiking up by these little streams, and it was lovely.
That's rad. That's also a record that I remember. I mean, it came out in 2005. Everyone I knew who was in a band was talking about that record. Like that was a record that was like a lot of times you hear about bands who are like bands, and obviously Thrice has a worldwide international fan base of diehards. But man, that was like a band's band record. I just remember every band dude I knew was like, new Thrice album, new Thrice, new Thrice, new Thrice. Like it really just, I mean, the risk of embarrassing you, it really blew a lot of people's minds. I really remember people like being heavily devoted in that album, and I mean, people talked about it the way that they talk about Tool or Radiohead or something. For our world, it was like a band in our world graduating sort of to that status
Hmm.
creative.
I mean, that's nice to hear, especially because I think, in a sense, that's what we're trying to do, is break out of whatever people were trying to put us in, that we never felt like we really belonged in anyway. We're like, and I think part of that was, we've talked about this before, but because artist was rushed, it didn't go as far as we wanted it to go. Like we had a lot of these ideas in our head already and didn't really have time to um, get them out. But I mean, in the end, maybe that was the better way to go long term. Who knows? But yeah, we were really trying to push ourselves and figure out some new stuff, at least for us, new stuff. Bringing in more and more influences, and um, yeah, it was an exciting record.
Had you developed any tools, personally, creatively? I mean, not even just work-life balance, but when there's, because the band was at its heaviest in terms of touring at that time, like just all these a list of tours with a lot of killer bands, and press is happening, and and there's transitions at the label, and just whatever, all that stuff around. Had you developed any tools in terms of how to kind of tune all of that out and focus on the writing recording side when it's time to write and record?
I mean, especially for that one, we were because of the artist stuff, we were really determined to like not plan a tour, not do anything until we were sure like we had the record done and written and recorded. So that was big. I mean, I remember that was the big focus. And then we had, I mean, I feel like we've always done a pretty good job tuning out what we thought people wanted to hear from us. I think we're stubborn enough and align enough on that kind of stuff to do pretty well at that. So, uh, especially I think when you have a record that hits, or even two, like Illusion, and then artists like really resonating with people, there's definitely the thing in the back of your head of like, well, I want to keep pleasing those people who like
Right.
this.
Yeah, sure.
Um, but I think much stronger just was the drive to figure the stuff out that we wanted to and push ourselves. So
And for any, and you and I think have spoken about this before, any band that becomes a career band and builds a catalog, inevitably by your second album, there's someone who says, "Oh, I wish this was more like the album before." And
yes.
the thing I always tell bands to keep in mind is that, well, when your next record comes out, this record that they're complaining about is going to be the one that they wish you sounded like again.
Hmm.
So, you can't
Very true.
obviously be tethered to that, because, yeah, the new stuff eventually, inevitably becomes the old stuff, and people are attached to that as you go.
Yep.